ahead of their Sunday night showdown. SportsCenter after PTI on ESPN and on the ESPN app. Meanwhile, you're watching a Football Friday edition of Get Up, and we're going to play either or here with a couple of the big games on the schedule this weekend. And Lewis, I'll start with you. Texans, Jaguars in London. Who you like?
I'm going to go Texans. Look, you got to go with Deshaun Watson. I mean, look, this is a guy who basically threw a touchdown pass with one eye, right? I mean, at least that's what he said. And you know what? He got kicked in the face. He right now is carrying this football team on his back. He is doing things that are befitting of a most valuable player of the National Football League. So you can't bet against him. I know, look, no J.J. Watt is a big deficit for the Houston Texans, but I'm going to go with the Lions. I'm going to go with the Texans.
Look at the records.
Yeah.
It's a big division game, and they're playing it in London. Bobby, you are next. Lions or Raiders? Who you got?
I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. As much shade has been thrown Matt Stafford's way over the course of his career, he is on fire right now. He is the #1 quarterback from inside of the pocket. And when you look at their receivers, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola, these guys have come and played incredibly well for him. This Lions offense is explosive, and the Raiders don't get pressure. Big game for Stafford.
I'm going to run through Stafford's numbers in a couple of minutes in my picks here. He's having a sneaky great year. Sanchez, Colts or Steelers? Who you got?
I'm picking the Colts, and it's because of Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Look at this play in his own end zone. Right before this, he avoids Von Miller. We always knew he had great pocket mechanics. He can make the routine throws. Now he's making these splash plays. He's galvanizing this team the same way Deshaun Watson did in Houston. He's got these guys juiced up with plays like this. They're going to be pretty good.
Think about that AFC South, and we just looked at it with the Jaguars and the Texans and now the Colts. And then I'll just tell you how this thing worked. We were then going to do Bears and Eagles, and then we had our show meeting this morning, and we realized so much of the conversation is about the quarterback situation in Chicago. We needed to just focus in on that. And so, Lewis, I'll give you the floor. You have been very high. You've been a believer in Mitch Trubisky for a long time. Have you come to the end of that road?
Yeah, I think I have, especially when you're talking about who will be the quarterback of this team maybe in 2020. I think Matt Nagy will nurse us till the end of this season. I think he will do what he needs to do in order to get Mitch to play at a level that will allow them the chance to compete for a wild card berth. They're not going to win. They're not going to win the North this year. But I think he will do that. But I think come 2020, I personally think Matt's going to look at this and go, look at the quarterbacks that I had when I was in Kansas City. I had Alex Smith, who's one of the most cerebral quarterbacks maybe to ever play the game. I had Pat Mahomes, who's one of the most naturally gifted to ever play the game. With Mitch, I'm kind of in purgatory, so to speak. I don't have either one. I don't have a guy who's known to be the cerebral type who can just figure it out, or a guy who necessarily has unique throwing ability. And I think that's just going to lead him down a road to maybe saying, hey, look, we may need to go in a different direction if we want to ultimately get to a Super Bowl here.
I buy that. Here's the question I have. Are they currently utilizing him to the best of his ability, which is to suggest he has a skill set, whatever it is. It may not give him the ability to become a great quarterback, but they won games doing it last year, and they seem to have gotten away from it to some degree, Mark, this year.
Let's not forget, just last week, if they make that field goal, it's a little different narrative. We're a little nicer to Mitch, right?
Right.
And he plays well towards the end of games. He gets him in position to win. But also don't forget, last year he averaged 30 yards a game with his legs. Thank you, Hembo. And, I mean, he's not doing it this year. They're almost siloing him in the pocket in some ways. Like, in some ways, just let him play a little bit. Stop worrying too much, Mitch, and just go play. Go play and have fun. Cut it loose.
That's kind of what I'm talking about, is that it looks like Matt Nagy is trying to make Mitch Trubisky into the kind of quarterback that Nagy wants to have instead of utilizing the things that he can actually do.
Well, let's not also forget this. Like Lewis mentioned, two guys, Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. They're both pretty athletic guys. They can do things, but I don't think Nagy wants to run an offense where you're running your quarterback all the time like the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. Like, Trubisky isn't great at diagnosing coverages. He struggles to see down the field. And this may honestly be a blessing in disguise for Bears fans, because maybe the worst thing could have happened is he maybe caught fire a little bit again this year. Maybe they make a little bit of a playoff run, and it ends up like the Blake Bortles situation in Jacksonville, where you commit to a guy because of how good your team is, and he's played well at the right times, but then it's going to hamstring you the next 2 or 3 years because you're going to be committed to that guy for more than just his rookie deal.
Yeah, I think there's just too much responsibility on the part of the coaching staff to have to come up with something for it always to be right for him. And he can't ever just unlock, like you said, he can't ever just unlock his mind and say, hey, look, I don't care what happens. I'm just going to play. They want him to do that.
That's what he did at the end of last year.
But they can't tap into that on a consistent basis is the problem. That's why I think long term, they're going to have to go somewhere else.
All right, that's that situation. Meantime, it is time now for me to pick every game on this Sunday schedule. I think so far this season I'm completely unbeaten. Go. Texans, Jags in London. Big game in the South. Minshew is the man, but Deshaun can do it blind. Elementary, my dear Watson, 27-17. Skins, Bills. Buffalo needs a bounce back big, and they've come to the right place. Washington makes me feel better about being a Jet fan. Bills, 75-5. Titans, Panthers, who knows? Can't get a feel for either team, but only one has Christian McCaffrey, so I'll take them by 1. Bears, Eagles, 2 quarterbacks drafted 2nd overall. People like to criticize both, but only one deserves it. Fly, Eagles, fly, 23-20. Jets, Dolphins, I can't imagine anything worse. One team is trying to lose, the other, unimaginably, looks worse than them. I would rather have a root canal in the back of a taxi than watch this game. In fact, I refuse to make a pick because the world would be a better place if it was never played. Colts, Steelers, guess whose season isn't over? Black and yellow gonna leave the horseshoe feeling blue and wake up Monday just a game out of first place. Lions, Raiders, the 2 best teams no one talks about. Matt Stafford has thrown 16 touchdowns and 4 picks. He's been great, but Oakland is home for the first time since mid-September. Give me Gruden, 33-28. Bucks, Seahawks, Jameis Winston has thrown 12 times as many interceptions as Russell Wilson this year. Need I say more? Seattle at home, 74-9. Browns, Broncos, Cleveland, think you're having a tough time? Denver just lost its quarterback in a press conference. He hurt his neck while hurting his coach's feelings. Just what the doctor ordered for the volatile Browns, 26-10. Packers, Chargers, 40,000 fans in LA, all but 16 of them rooting for Green Bay. Rodgers will send them home happy, 106-9. Finally, Pats, Ravens. I already told you, Steelers wake up a game out of first because Bill and Brady will bag Baltimore to stay unbeaten. Defense scores again. Pats win 24-13. I'm thinking of hiring a comedy writer for that thing because I don't even care if I get the picks right. I just want to make you guys laugh.
A root canal.
A root canal in the back of a taxi.
Greater. That's the good stuff.
Can you imagine anything worse than watching the Jets and the Dolphins play for 3 hours this Sunday? Is there literally anything you wouldn't rather do than that? I ask you. No answer.
Silence.
See? Because there is nothing. There's nothing you wouldn't rather do than that. Anyway, we look forward to the weekend in the National Football League. We'll have much more of that. In the meantime, did you see Kevin Durant yesterday? He was here. Now the Nets forward joined First Take yesterday for a wide-ranging interview. Among the topics discussed was his decision to leave Golden State this summer and how much of a role last year's on-court argument with Draymond Green played in that decision.
Draymond Green is another big personality and what have you. A lot was made about the altercation against the Clippers when y'all were playing. Did that play a role in you leaving Golden State?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. I mean, your teammate talked to you that way, you think about it a bit, but, we talked about it, but definitely, for sure, I'm not going to lie about it.
Katie, why do you ultimately decide to leave?
I just felt like I needed a switch. I felt like a lot of stuff in Golden State had reared its head, and I felt like that was just going to be the end no matter what.
I'm with the man who played a very large role in making all that happen yesterday, from the boardroom and everything else with Stephen A. And the conversations with Kevin Durant. So what did you take out of that piece of it? There's so much I want to ask you, but just starting there, what did you take out of that piece of the conversation?
Obviously for Kevin, he's a very private individual, and it takes a lot to become close to Kevin. There has to be trust there, and I think it's safe to say for anybody, Greeny. And I think him and Draymond had such a close relationship that sometimes in that moment, even when you're brothers, if you cross a certain line, some things in life you just can never take back. And I think that moment happened, and it festered because Draymond was told to apologize, but didn't want to apologize. And then by the time he came to the realization that he was wrong, it was done. And they made amends, but it never seemed the same. Now, maybe it is better, but Kevin's in a different direction. And that whole team just seemed like that was the case at that given time because the media was able to get in there and parse relationships.
You were there for so much of that, and you sort of had a close-up look at a lot of things that happened, that some of which people know about now and some of which I think still really have not fully come out.
Yeah, I was actually in the hotel room with Kevin and Rich and those guys after the injury and kind of saw that whole thing. And that's where obviously Kevin to tell, but being in that room with Bob Myers and seeing that whole situation down, I said it the next day. I was like, Kevin made the decision not to allow the team to go with him, decided to go back to New York on his own, and you felt like it was a different direction. And you also felt like who followed up with Kevin afterwards? Like Klay Thompson followed up. I'm not sure of all the other guys that followed up. But those are the little things when you build trust with teammates. And I will say this, everybody has an ego at stake. And for a lot of players, you might think we know who they are, but you don't know who they are behind closed doors and how they deal with these scenarios. And it did all come to a head. And I'm not saying that everybody was right. Everybody handled the situation the way they tried to handle it. But it was interesting to see, who's on whose side.
when you consider all the things that happen, it's really almost unprecedented for someone of his magnitude to have an injury of that magnitude under those circumstances. Where is his head now? We got to see him here yesterday. I didn't actually get a chance to talk to him off the air. Where would you describe Kevin's head as being right now?
They're locked in. I mean, he's locked in this thing with Kyrie. Sorry, like they're going to fight for it. And even you saw yesterday, you know, every time something small happens with Kyrie, like that's how they're going to ride. Like this is, I said it live on our show, it's like Mad Max. Like they're going to back each other. They're riding out together. And this whole team, they're going to get hit left and right, but that's how they're going to roll.
We got terrific basketball this weekend. Of course, Jay Will be here, right here in this studio, tipping off your weekend with a star-studded Friday night doubleheader. James Harden and Russell Westbrook leading the Rockets against Kyrie. That's 7 Eastern tonight. Then you're going to see LeBron and AD. You're going to see Luka and Kristaps.